So, hi everyone, and warmly welcome to our podcast, An Inclusive Labour Market, with us at Mitt Liv and our super special guest that will join us for talks about D&I. And the purpose of this interview series is to get behind the scenes and learn more about D&I from a CEO perspective. So you will have the chance to meet some amazing CEOs in some of the largest companies and get their view on why D&I and how walk the talk. But for you who doesn't know much about us or nothing at all, we have been around with Mitt Liv since 2008. And our vision is to work for an inclusive society and a labor market that values diversity. But if you want to learn more about us, you can check out our homepage, mittliv.com. But today we have the big honor to have a true role model with us for this conversation, who knows a lot about great leadership as the CEO for Dustin, soon to be for Axel Johnson, and warmly welcome Thomas Ekman.
Thank you very much, Sofia. Really good to be here and join you here.
Yeah, and how are you today? What feeling did you wake up with this morning, Thomas?
Actually, I mean, even though you wake up these days with a lot of bad news in newspapers and in the news in general, but I must say, actually, I woke up this morning with a good and hopeful feeling about the future, given also that we actually have a Science Week in Stockholm this week with the Nobel Prize.
Wow.
And that is a lot of inspiration that I think to see that we actually humankind is progressing very well. So actually that was what I had discussion this morning with my wife here. It's actually we are progressing in the right direction, even though it doesn't feel so at the moment, but we do.
Yeah, that's a good vision and feeling. But is there anything special you see out there that gives you that hope?
I think in general, I think we are learning more about ourselves. I mean, if you look at the prize, the Nobel Prizes this year, actually, it's very interesting because it's first of all we have one prize that goes back to sort of where do we originate from, the Neanderthals, and how we came about as human beings, as the ones we are. And then there's also a prize of quantum physics, which is really interesting and quite mind-blowing to talk about and to think about. So. And that will help us a lot going forward in everything we do. So
yeah, and how come that you are so interested in the human being? Where does that come from?
I think it probably comes from how I grew up. I guess we have had a lot of discussions about that, and then obviously we discuss science a lot here at home because my wife is also a science journalist and work a lot with Nobel Prizes. But I think for me as a human, to think about these questions is probably because I grew up in a very, what you can call it, a very human forward-leaning thinking that there are individuals that create the difference in the world, and that's it's quite a solid value for myself.
So has the values in the company been important for you when choosing your roles and the kind of companies that you've been leading?
You discover that when you come into a place, and I mean, if you start to work somewhere, you don't know so much about it. You can read and so forth, of course, but then you discover it after a while if this sort of is in sound with or is in tune with your own values, and thus then you can work there forever probably, because it's more a matter of who you work with and what values you do, and then you come back to actually what you do. But I think that's a fact, and you quite notice it quite quickly if it doesn't resonate with your own values, and then it's quite hard actually to work there in places like that.
And how does that become reality at your workplace, your values? What do you bring with your values to the job every day?
I think I bring, at least I try to bring the search for truth. It can sound a bit big, but it is to search for transparency and search for truth, and then you sort of find the true values also in a company, as you do with yourself, of course. But I think the constant sort of strive to improve as a human and try to be better than you were yesterday is of course something I bring to my workplace as well.
And how can you see that that is linked to diversity and inclusion, which is the topic for today?
It is because if it's like searching for, when you, I mean, take a very concrete example, when you recruit people, if you really search for the right competence, then you will find, then after a while in a company, you will have a very diverse set of people in the company. You really are true to searching for the right competence for the right place. Because we are very blurred in our thinking when it comes to how we attract people, how we recruit people, how we think about that. So in those when you sort of search for that, then you actually find quite a diverse structure of the company. Not by itself, of course, but you really have to be honest to yourself and look for the right competence for the position you search for.
Yeah, and how does can you give us a picture of where Dustin is within diversity and inclusion for the moment, and some about the journey that you have made during your time as a CEO?
I think I mean we are quite. I think we are quite. We have there are always things to do, but we have come quite a bit on this. And I mean Dustin has always from the beginning. I think also from the founders, they've also thought about these terms, that they should find the right people and in the right place, i.e. meaning that you find the right competence. And then if that was someone from abroad or a woman or a man, it didn't matter. It was the right person that should be in the place. So we had quite a good foundation for this. But then, of course, we have leveled up that during the years. And I also came to Dustin, of course, given the fact that it's also Axel Johnson is the main shareholder and has become even a more bigger shareholder over the years. And there you have a lot of these values as well. So Dustin, of course, that was also one of the reasons why Axel Johnson actually acquired a part of Dustin, because of the fact that the values were quite resonating quite well. I think what we have done is, I mean, we have leveled even further from a very good position, and maybe broaden the whole scope, so that we now have implemented tools also to help managers. And I think that is quite important, that you actually realize that it is hard for a company to transform, but therefore you have to help yourself by implementing tools, so that recruitment management, for example, get tools to secure that they have the right composition of their teams. Yeah.
And I think many wonder what are tools within D&I. Could you give some hands-on examples on the tools that you're talking about?
First of all, I think it's one important part is, of course, training. That you train people in this mindset. That you train how do you actually search for competence, and then you have to take out things that sort of disturbs that. Like, for example, take one very concrete tool is how we have implemented anonymous recruitment, so that you don't see when you are a recruiting manager, you don't see the name, you don't see the origin of the person, and you don't see the age. So you only look at sort of who is this person and what has he or she done, and what is the potential of that person. And that you discuss with the team, and you discuss it with the talent acquisition team that we also have, and then you sort of find the right competence with that. And it's also quite interesting because that we implemented now during the last year, or during it's more than 1.5 years, and it's some manager actually get surprised that here came a guy who's 60 years old, or here came a person who's from this country. And they are sort of surprised about a positive surprise, that it was actually not what they thought. And that is also how you work with attitudes, how you work with prejudice, how you work with mindset in this actually. So that has helped a lot. And then I think also one other important tool is, for example, a talent acquisition team, or which we use as an internal headhunting, more or less. So that if I am a manager and I lose a person who resigns, or I need to replace, then I want to fix that as soon as possible. And typically you search where it's easiest to find, and then you search in your network, which is typically quite similar to your own sort of background and everything. But there we need some internal or semi-external person who help out there, who know how your team looks and what kind of composition you're to strive for. Yeah. Not to get it more diverse. Yeah. It is very much about that we as a company help ourselves to become more. I mean, and everything bases on that. Of course, that I have a strong belief in that a diverse team is better than a non-diverse team, because we will get a better company.
Yeah. But what would you say are the biggest challenges, and also how do you face if racism or sexism or any of those things appears in your organization? How do you handle that?
It's just handled straight up. I mean,
Yeah.
if it happens, then you have to deal with it immediately and talk about that. And of course, we are also growing a lot, and now we are 2,500 people in the company. And of course, with that size, then you become more or less like a mirror of the society.
Yeah.
So obviously, we have everyone is on board on Dustin.
Yeah.
Which I think is good, because that is also how we have to deal with the world. I mean, this is how it is, and then we have to deal with it. What is acceptable in Dustin and what is not acceptable, and have quite clear sort of borders, or what you call it. What is how do we behave to each other here, and be quite strict and honest with that. But that comes also from the fact that of course the leadership team and especially myself always try to have this on the agenda, so that this is always on top of people's minds, that how we develop and build the company.
Yeah.
And we build it through people. I mean, it's we have a lot of systems and intelligent AI solutions and everything, but it comes down to that we have the right persons in the right place. That is in the end what matters, whatever system you have. So therefore we have to work a lot with this in order to continue to be an attractive workplace and attractive.
And I mean, you started this journey for Dustin, and you come a bit on this journey. But what would you suggest to the companies that are just about starting this work? What is the first crucial step to take, you think?
First of all, I think you have to be convinced with yourself that you want to run a modern workplace. You want to run a modern company, and a modern company does not consist of only women, or only men, or only people from a certain area. It doesn't, because the customers don't. So they come from wherever, and so we have to sort of also see how do I best support and be relevant to my customers. But what company do you want to actually run?
Yeah.
How do you want your company to be? And I think because I mean, I've worked with this for all my career. Obviously, had this as a key top on the agenda. And sometimes I also got the question, how do you know that it's actually better to have a diverse company than a non-diverse company?
And what would you answer?
Yeah, first you can think that's kind of a stupid question, but it's actually not, because it is a question that is not possible to answer, because you cannot play back and say, okay, let's play back 5 years and install only men in this company, or only people from a certain area, and see what happens. It's hard to replay sort of the whole system.
Yeah.
But it is also, so it comes down to, what do you actually believe in yourself? How do you want to run your company? How do you want to be perceived? How do you want to attract people? What kind of people do you want to have? Because it is, I mean, you can measure and you can do a lot of stuff, but then it's a lot of other things happen in the world. But so it comes down to your own that, are you convinced about this or not? And because this is not something that you can outsource to someone else and say that, let's fix the D&I somewhere in the company. It has to be with yourself. Otherwise, it will only become a sort of a greenwashing.
But historically, it's been like first, when I started Mitt Liv 2008, it was like a small CSR matter somewhere out in the company. Then it became an HR matter. And now we are pushing this to become a CO matter, but that has been your opinion, I guess, all the time. So what is it in the CO role that is so important to make this happen, you think?
I think it's just it's of course to have, as said, have it on the agenda, make it important also for your closest team members, that this is how, I think this is sort of the heart of how you build a company.
Yeah.
How do we want the company to be structured? What kind of people do we want to be attracted about working at our company? And that then you suddenly very quickly come into the questions that we need to have a diverse team. We need to have people with different aspects, with different sort of with different backgrounds, have different views on stuff that can also level sort of the company's performance. And then it becomes natural for people to think about it. Still, though, there is a lot of, I mean, we are all human, so we have a prejudice in our minds. We have that, and that we have to work with.
Yeah, but then I'm curious, Thomas, because we meet many organizations, and it's not always we meet those amazing persons like you that have this in like your DNA and naturally in your mindset. So how do you bring the no-sayers on board, you think? How do you change that mindset?
I think it comes back to that people actually have to go back. I mean, obviously you can have that, and that can come, but then you have to sort of see whether will this change? Will this person be able to change his or her mindset in this or not? And it comes back to actually that you have to sort of get that person to understand whether he or she thinks this is an important part, and typically those persons are less and less surfacing to higher levels in the company. Because it doesn't work. It will not work. It might work, of course, in some companies, but it will not work over time. They will lose out, and I think that therefore either someone can know that I know I need to change, but I don't know how, and then of course you have the good possibility to change the mindset of that. But I think it comes back to the person's willingness to sort of see how do I want to run my company, or how do I want to run my team.
And also I'm curious because you see a lot out there in your role, and we have those mega trends that impacts our societies, economies, and us as individuals in many different ways. What kind of power or forces do you see out there that makes this a no-brainer?
I mean, first of all, I think it is how the society changed, that everything. I mean, today we have access to information constantly. We are the world is, even though we believe we sometimes right now we can feel that we actually go backwards when it comes to globalization. But overall, in general, we don't. I mean, the world becomes more global. How do you recruit? How do you find the right people to be an attractive company? That scope is not only your closest block anymore. You have to go sort of quite broad in order to find people. So I think the overall mega trend is that the information is everywhere, and that creates transparency, and that everyone knows everything at sort of an instant, and know what your competitor does in the other part of the world immediately. So, and therefore you need to find people also who can adapt to that. I think that probably is just to accept that this is how it will be, and we continue to develop the world also in that way, so it will continue to do that.
And do you think the company's values are important to push the societal values around the company where you have operations?
I strongly believe that companies are sort of the true backbone of a society, because that is where people work. They have meaningful things to do, and they create and they produce, and we are as humans, that's what we like to do. So I think the having a good environment for creating and establishing and building companies in a society is so important, and you can see that in all countries where it doesn't happen. I mean, you don't want to live in those countries.
No,
you cannot sort of, no, that's not good. And you see how people also feel in those countries. That's why they flee from the countries.
Yeah, exactly. But you have operation at many markets. Yes. What is the challenges with that within D&I?
I think there are obviously cultural challenges between our countries, even though we are in the Nordics and we are in the Benelux. So it's fairly similar, I must say. And what sort of the common denominator in that is that our customers' behaviors are quite similar.
Yeah.
And that is a very good foundation to build on, because then we can build on the same business model and the same way of doing. But obviously, countries are more or less progressive in this and more or less ahead on when it comes to D&I, and some countries are fairly behind in thinking. But that also comes back. It comes very much to how have you built sort of the society. Is it possible to have maternity leave? Is it possible to combine two people in a household to work at the same time, for example? And that is not, that is not clear in all countries, even though they are very close to us. It's not.
No. And how do you handle that?
I mean, then you have to adapt and help out and do your own set your own policies. And sometimes I think companies also have to be a forerunner in this, and then sort of help the society, how the society can change, because companies like ourselves, we are actually not, to some, it may sound blunt, but we don't care so much what the countries, we don't care so much about the borders, we care about the competence. Yeah. And we find the competence in the right place, and then we set the companies, but the person can sit in Amsterdam or in Brussels, but they can work with the manager in Stockholm or the other way around. Yeah. And to sort of take out a company does not, given the fact that we don't care so much about the border. Obviously, we have to follow the laws and everything, but the border as such, from a humankind perspective, we don't. It doesn't matter. There we need to find people who are the right persons and right competence. Yeah. And that is sometimes
that's interesting.
Sometimes that there can cultural difference come in, that people are very used to work in. They have to be responsible for their closest block, sort of. And there we are. I think we can also encourage people to grow. Not thinking like that.
No, that's super interesting. But when it comes down to leadership, then to actually have operation in at many markets, what is the, would you say, number one most crucial leadership behavior at Dustin?
I have very much. You can say we have four, which I actually had before also, but I brought them also to Dustin. But I think there are four sort of core characteristics that you need to have as a leader in general, actually, but not maybe as a leader, but as a humankind. That you need to have courage, you need to be curious, you need to feel responsibility, and you need to empower. And with that, because courage is actually needed in order for you to become a manager. Then you have to step out and say that, okay, I want to lead this team, I want to do that, and I want to take us to this point. And then you need a lot of curiosity actually to get there. You need to be curious, especially you need to be curious about people. Yeah. How do people evolve? How do I develop my team? The same moment as you said, is the same moment as you find out that, yes, I want to become a manager or a leader. Then it's no more about yourself. It's only about the team, which can sound like a cliche, but it's actually true. Maybe that's why it's called a cliche, but it is. So it is very much about that. And how do I actually get the people then to feel the same responsibility? Yeah. If I see, how do I not point at the trash? I pick up the trash if there is somewhere, and I truly try to empower my team as much as possible. So there are characteristics here that actually work, and understand that you as a manager are what everyone sees. So
but that makes me very curious, because even a CEO wakes up maybe with a bad day or some, I don't know, argues at home for some reason. How do you leave that at home? How do you rewire the brain so you come in happy, or is there room for you to have a bad day at work?
No, not really, but of course I'm a human. But I think it is more of the fact that you have the feeling, I think, in that you want to be back to what we talked about before, that the feeling of strive to improve. And of course everyone can have a bad day. You feel that this feels a bit whatever it can be. But then it's typically what I myself do is typically I discuss with my kids when they start off, and I discuss their topics of their day. That typically rewires everything. But I think it is, in general, it is, you have to be, I mean, when you lead a company, then obviously you are convinced that I want this to perform. I want us to perform. I want to create results. I want the people in the company to feel well and feel happy about working at Dustin or whatever workplace. And then it's sort of a mindset. I think it is. So I can't say it's really having a bad day, really, but it's more of it's a mindset of how you want to run the company.
Yeah, and that makes me curious about, what do you think will happen with the companies who does not take D&I as seriously as Dustin do in the future? Is there a way for those companies, you think? And
I mean, short answer is, over time they will die. I mean, they will at least lose customers, they will lose employees, and they will lose attraction. And I think that will increase even more and more, given the fact that, said before, the trends of information everywhere, the globalization as such, the fight for actually democracy that is going on, that will get companies who are fighting for those values and driving those values and living those values, from a human rights perspective, from a democracy perspective, from a leadership and from a diversity perspective. Those companies over time win. Then it can have short-term bumps and everything, but if you look long-term, that will for sure happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, I mean, there are many CEOs that will listen to this interview, so and looking for tips and ideas on how to get this journey started. But what would you want to say to other CEOs to make sure they start this journey in the right direction?
But I think it is to constantly have it on the agenda.
Yeah.
And then because if you have it on the agenda and you yourself obviously are convinced about this, that you want to run a modern company, a diverse modern company that creates good results. And if you have it there, then and you constantly remind your team, then you will take actions on this. You will improve, and you will also start to measure and start to follow up. And that is an important part, to take actions or find the insights. Where have we challenges in our company? And typically that comes down to performance. And then you should not look at the short-term performance. You should look at the longer period. How do we perform actually? How do we develop? Because this also takes time. First of all, if you have the mindset, then let it take the time. Don't be stressed about it, but just work with it and deal with it, and go for the insights, take the actions, and then start to measure.
I love that it takes time. It's not a quick fix to change any behavior. So thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you for joining this conversation. So much inspiration. And I used to wrap this up by saying that be the change you wish to see. That's that's it. So thank you so much, Thomas. And
future, that's what we do.
So see you, and have a great day.
Good. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.